Once you have finished outlining your tiger with Sharpie, we're going to use a mixture of oil pastels and chalk pastels to add color to our tiger. So the first one you're going to want to use is oil pastels. You can use the oil pastels to color in the eye color. That would just be this little ring around the pupil, which is the black part of the tiger's eye. Most tigers have kind of a greenish or golden colored eye. So here I'm using green, but you could also use yellow if you'd like. I'm using some dark green around the edge to add a little bit of value to the eye. Value is the amount of light or dark in a color. And when I add a darker green, it makes the eye shape pop a little bit more. For the nose, I colored it with a pink towards the top and then used the peach oil pastel towards the bottom to make it have value so that it's getting lighter towards the bottom. The two things that we're coloring in completely with oil pastels are the iris, or the colored part of the tiger's eye, and the nose. The rest of the tiger, we're going to use oil pastels and chalk pastels. The first thing you're going to want to use is oil pastels. So notice how I've colored in here with some oil pastel, and it's not super dark. You can see that there's still some white of the paper showing through. Here on the ear, I have used oil pastel and chalk pastel. You don't see much white space left. The chalk pastel fills in those white spots that are left over. So with your oil pastels, we're gonna add a little texture, lightly color in the area, not pressing super hard with our pastel, and we can layer those colors. So for the muzzle here, I'm using a peach, layering a little bit of yellow on top and some bright neon orange. This is going to add a variety of color and texture to our tiger. We know that tigers have a bunch of fur, so we want to show that texture in our artwork. You can think about different sections of your tiger having slightly different shades of orange or peach. Like the edges of the ear, I did a darker orange. The muzzle is lighter, more of a peach color. The bridge of the nose is going to be a darker orange. So maybe on the mane here, I'm gonna do a lighter orange. So again, with my pastel, I'm just gonna color lightly, not pressing super hard, not filling it in completely, just adding a little bit of texture. I'm gonna end up filling in those empty white areas of my paper with chalk pastel after I use all my oil pastel. So you should do all the oil pastel steps first, then the chalk pastel. I'm going to keep going until I finish coloring the rest of my tiger with oil pastel. Now remember, you can layer your oil pastels so that you have more than one color in a section on your tiger. And what you do to one side should be the same on the other side. Tigers are usually symmetrical, meaning that they are the same on both sides. So I made both of these sections the same, and around the rest of my tiger, the colors match as well. Here I have a light peach. I can layer some orange on top of that. And remember, we're pressing super lightly with our oil pastels, barely pressing on the paper just to get a light amount of color. And we are showing the texture of the tiger's fur. When you do this, you'll want to color in one direction and think about the direction that the fur would be going in. If I go back and forth all over the place, it might look a little bit funny. So I'm trying to keep a vertical line going up and down here. Here I went side to side all the way through. Here I went side to side. So just think about the direction that you are coloring in. And now that my tiger's completely colored in with oil pastels, I can move on to my chalk pastel step. You'll need a tray of chalk and a little container of liquid starch. You will also want to have a few tissues to wipe your fingers during this process. So you're gonna work on one section of your tiger at a time. And remember, keeping your tiger symmetrical, so coloring the same colors on each side. You're gonna color right over your oil pastel and fill in the rest of that area with chalk. You don't need to press hard on the chalk, just lightly. And you wanna work on a small area at a time. So I just colored that border in. Then you're going to dip your finger gently into the liquid starch and just get a little bit on your finger. And then you're going to rub on top, and you're going to see the chalk turn into a paint. Here I'm putting this light yellow on top of the inside part of the ear, which is what I did on this side. And you can even do more than one color. So maybe I'll do a little bit of this peach as well. Dip my finger back into the liquid starch and just rub it on top of the area that you colored. Make sure you're only doing this in the spots that you added the chalk pastel to. If you do this on top of an area with oil pastel, it's not going to do anything. Notice that now my shapes are completely filled with color. I don't have those white spots showing through. You can also see the lines of our pastel, and that shows texture. Remember, we want to show the texture of our tiger's fur. So here I'm gonna color on top of this area with orange because I want this to be nice and bright in the middle on the bridge of the tiger's nose. You might have another idea for yours. You don't have to put the same colors as I do, but we are all going to use a mixture of yellows and oranges. I have this kind of rusty orange color that I am putting on top. And once I go into my liquid starch step, I can see those colors blend. I'm just using small little circular motions with my finger. And sometimes you have to go back into the liquid starch because you're going to run out. So you can dip back in and get more as needed. If you want to add more color to an area after you've already added liquid starch, you're gonna need to wait for that section to dry and then you can add more on top. Right now, if I wanted to color on top of this, I should wait until it dries, but it shouldn't take too long to dry. So here, I'm gonna put some darker orange along the edges, and remember doing this symmetrically, so putting the same colors on both sides. Being careful to color around the eye shapes and not inside of them where they should stay white. Then I want it to change to more of a yellow. So I'm putting yellow closer to the middle of the tiger's face. Again, on both sides because I want this to stay symmetrical. And then I'm going to get my liquid starch and blend those colors together. I'm going to keep going with this process until I have done this all over my tiger. So remember, oil pastels first, and then chalk pastels, which you blend with liquid starch. And after you blend a section, you're going to want to clean your fingers on a tissue so then you can get another color of chalk pastel. When you're done, make sure you put the lid on the liquid starch and you put this on the drying rack to dry. I can't wait to see how your Henri Rousseau tigers turn out using oil pastels and chalk pastels.